The manila folder landed on my kitchen table with a soft thud that somehow echoed through my entire body. My sister's hand still rested on it, her knuckles white with tension. "I didn't know if I should tell you," she whispered, "but you deserve to know." I stared at the folder, my coffee going cold beside me. Something inside me already knew what those papers contained. But another part, the part that had spent 15 years building a life with Thomas, desperately clung to denial. "Just tell me what I'm about to see," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. "Bank statements, property deeds, and divorce papers, already drafted." She paused, her eyes filling with tears. "He's been planning this for 2 years, Emma. 2 years of moving assets, creating shell companies, and building a case that you contributed minimal value to the business." The business? Our business? The marketing agency we'd built from nothing when we were barely out of college, working from a cramped apartment with secondhand laptops. The one I'd stepped back from when our daughter Lily was born, at his insistence that one of us needs to focus on family. I felt something crack inside me. Not my heart, but the carefully constructed image I'd maintained of my marriage, my husband, my life. "There's more," my sister continued. "He's been seeing someone, his new business partner." "Rebecca," I whispered. "The young, brilliant strategist he'd brought on last year. The woman who had sent me a Christmas card with her smiling face next to my husband's, their arms around each other in a way that had made me pause before I dismissed my own instincts." I opened the folder with trembling hands. There it was, documented betrayal. Not just an affair, but a systematic plan to erase me. Financial statements showing money siphoned to accounts I knew nothing about. Property in Montana, a state I once mentioned wanting to retire in, purchased under an LLC I had no connection to. And most devastating of all, a legal strategy to claim I had abandoned the business voluntarily to become just a housewife. "The cottage on Lake Haven is in her name now," my sister said softly. "The one where Mom and Dad used to take us." That broke something loose in me. That cottage had been in my family for generations before we included it in our business assets at Thomas's suggestion. A tax strategy, he'd called it. "How did you get these?" I asked, suddenly very aware that knowledge was power, and I needed every ounce of it. "Julian in legal has always had a soft spot for you. He came to me when Thomas asked him to prepare documents that would remove you as beneficiary from the insurance policies." Julian, of course. The quiet, principled lawyer who had warned me years ago that Thomas had concerning methods. I'd defended my husband then, attributing Julian's concerns to professional jealousy. My phone buzzed with Thomas's daily check-in text. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." The casual cruelty of that "love you" made my stomach turn. For 2 years, he had looked into my eyes, kissed me goodbye each morning, planned birthday parties for our daughter, all while meticulously preparing to discard me. "He's going to file next month," my sister said, "after the Harrison contract closes. It's worth millions, and he doesn't want you to have claim to it." The Harrison contract. The one I had secured through my college roommate, who now headed their marketing department. The one Thomas had initially dismissed as not worth our time, until I convinced him of its potential. "Does he know that you know?" I asked. My sister shook her head. "Julian was careful. As far as Thomas knows, everything is proceeding according to plan." I stood up slowly, walked to our family photo wall, smiling faces from vacations, holidays, milestone celebrations. 15 years of what I thought was building a life together. Had any of it been real? "Emma?" My sister's voice broke through my thoughts. "What are you going to do?" I turned back to her, something new and cold settling in my chest where panic had been moments before. "First, I'm going to make myself another cup of coffee," I said, reaching for my mug. "And then I'm going to do what I've always done better than Thomas. Think 10 steps ahead." That night, I lay beside Thomas in our bed, listening to his steady breathing. I studied his face in the dim light, the face I'd woken up to for 15 years. Had there been signs? Moments when the mask had slipped? I replayed 1,000 memories, searching for clues I'd missed. There were many, I realized now. The way he'd suggested I focus on raising Lily instead of returning to the agency after my maternity leave. "You're irreplaceable as her mother," he'd said, "and I can hire another marketing director." The gentle but persistent way he'd discouraged me from keeping up with industry contacts. The financial decisions he'd frame as boring details he was handling, so I wouldn't have to worry my creative mind about them. I'd thought it was love, protection, partnership. In reality, it was isolation and preparation. The next morning, I maintained my routine with mechanical precision, made breakfast for Lily, kissed Thomas goodbye as he left for work, smiled and nodded when he mentioned another late night coming up. "The Harrison presentation is taking everything we've got," he said, straightening his tie. The blue one I'd given him for our anniversary. "Rebecca and I might have to pull an all-nighter." "Do whatever you need to do," I replied, my voice warm with understanding. "I believe in you." The moment the door closed, I transformed. I called Lily's school and arranged for her to stay with my sister for a few days. A special aunt sleepover while Mommy takes care of some things. Then I began my reconnaissance. I started with what I knew best, our home office. The one Thomas rarely used because he had everything at work. Behind the false bottom of the desk drawer, a hiding place he thought I didn't know about, I found USB drives. Password protected, of course. But Thomas had always underestimated me. The password was our daughter's birthday plus the first 2 digits of his mother's maiden name, the same combination he'd used for years. What I found made my blood run cold. Not only detailed plans for his exit from our marriage, but evidence of client funds being mismanaged. Projects billed at higher rates than reported, profits hidden from partners, and most disturbingly, a digital trail showing how he'd been systematically diminishing my role in company records for years. There were emails between him and Rebecca discussing the Emma problem. "She still has too many loyalties in the industry," Rebecca had written. "We need to make sure the narrative is established before we move forward." Thomas's reply, "Don't worry. By the time we're ready, no one will remember she was anything more than the wife who helped out in the early days." The wife who helped out. I, who had secured our first 3 major clients through my college network. I, who had created the signature campaign strategy that became our agency's calling card. I, who had worked 80-hour weeks while pregnant because a major client was wavering. I printed everything, adding it to my sister's manila folder. Then I made 3 phone calls. First to Julian, confirming what my sister had told me, and thanking him for his loyalty. "I never felt right about how he was sidelining you," Julian said quietly. "You built that place as much as he did." Second, to my old friend Diana, now a forensic accountant. "I need someone who can track financial movements without setting off alarms," I explained. "And I need it done yesterday." "For you, Emma? I'll start tonight," she promised. The third call was the hardest, to my father's old friend, a retired judge who had always treated me like a daughter. "Henry, I need legal advice of the most discreet kind," I said when he answered. "Does this have something to do with Thomas?" he asked, surprising me. "Why would you ask that?" There was a pause. "Emma, I've seen this before. The way he started making excuses for why you couldn't attend industry events. How he began speaking about the company as if it were his sole creation. I hoped I was wrong. That night, when Thomas texted that he wouldn't be home, I responded with perfect wifely concern. "Don't work too hard, honey." "Everything okay with the Harrison presentation?" His reply came quickly. "Just some unexpected complications. Rebecca's helping me work through them." "Don't wait up." I smiled at my phone. Of course she was. Over the next week, I became the consummate actress, playing the role of oblivious wife to perfection. I asked about his day. I mentioned looking forward to our summer plans. I even suggested we should think about renovating the lake cottage, since we'll have so much to celebrate after the Harrison contract. All while I gathered evidence, made copies, secured statements, and pieced together the elaborate betrayal that had been unfolding around me. Thomas had been thorough, but his plan had a fundamental flaw. It was built on the assumption that I was exactly what he'd spent years conditioning me to be: decorative, dependent, and disengaged. He'd forgotten who I was before he started dimming my light. "You know what always made you special, Emma?" my college roommate said when I called her about the Harrison contract history. You never just accepted things at face value. You always looked for the angle no one else could see. It was time to find that angle. And when Thomas least expected it, I would show him exactly what he'd underestimated. 3 weeks. That's how long I gave myself to turn the tables. The exact amount of time before Thomas planned to blindside me with divorce papers after securing the Harrison contract. I set up a war room at my sister's house while maintaining perfect normalcy at home. Spreadsheets, legal documents, and strategy notes covered the walls of her guest bedroom. Diana delivered financial forensics that confirmed my worst fears. Thomas hadn't just been preparing for divorce. He'd been systematically devaluing my contributions and siphoning company assets for years. It's actually impressive in a sociopathic way, Diana remarked, pointing to complex fund transfers. He created a paper trail making it look like you received profit distributions that actually went to his shell companies. Can we prove it's fraud? I asked. With what I've found and what you've provided? Absolutely. But proving fraud wasn't enough. I needed leverage that would make him back down immediately, because a long legal battle would only hurt Lily. I needed something Thomas feared more than losing money. The answer came from an unexpected source: his executive assistant, Marie. I'd always maintained a friendly relationship with Marie, sending her birthday gifts and remembering her son's college graduation. When I casually met her for coffee, to surprise Thomas with anniversary plans, she hesitated before saying something that changed everything. Emma, I don't feel right about some things happening at the office. She glanced around nervously. Thomas has been having me prepare presentations about company history that, well, they don't mention you at all. What do you mean? New client pitches, company retrospectives. It's like you never existed. And there's more. She lowered her voice. The Harrison contract. Thomas told their team that the initial connection came through Rebecca's network, not yours. I kept my face neutral, despite the rage bubbling inside me. That's interesting. There's something else. Marie reached into her bag and slid a thumb drive across the table. I've kept backups of everything. Emails, presentations, original contracts, including those showing your signature as founding partner. I don't know if it helps, but it didn't feel right to let him erase you. That thumb drive was gold. It contained years of unaltered company documents, proof that Thomas was not only planning to divorce me, but actively rewriting our company's history. Among the files was something even more valuable: evidence that Thomas had presented altered financial projections to our investor group last quarter, a serious SEC violation. With Marie's evidence, Diana's financial forensics, and Julian's insider information, I had enough ammunition. But I still needed a strategy that would nullify Thomas's advantages: control of the office, relationships with current clients, and the element of surprise. I found my answer while going through old company formation documents. Thomas had insisted on complex corporate structuring for tax purposes, creating parent companies and subsidiaries. But buried in that complexity was a legal treasure, a forgotten clause in our original partnership agreement. "This is brilliant," Henry said when I showed him. "The survivorship clause here means that if either partner is found to have committed material fraud against the company, their shares automatically revert to the other partner. It's unusual, but legally binding." Thomas insisted on it, I explained. Back then, he was paranoid about me potentially embezzling. Ironic, isn't it? My plan took shape. Documentation of fraud, leverage from the investor misrepresentations, and the legal trap Thomas had set for himself years ago. I contacted key people: our original angel investor who'd always liked me better than Thomas, our first major client who still sent me Christmas cards, and most importantly, my college roommate at Harrison. "Thomas did what?" she exploded when I quietly explained how he'd tried to erase my role in connecting our companies. "Emma, he's presenting to our board next week. I was already suspicious when he showed up with that Rebecca person instead of you for preliminary meetings. I'd appreciate if you didn't let on that we've spoken," I said carefully. She paused, then understanding dawned. "You're setting something up. Don't worry, my poker face is excellent. But Emma? Make him pay." 3 days before Thomas planned to secure the Harrison contract, and a week before he planned to serve me divorce papers, I made final preparations. I transferred Lily to my sister's house for a special week with Auntie. I secured access to joint accounts that Thomas thought I'd forgotten existed, and I prepared a simple manila envelope with a handwritten note. That night, Thomas came home early for once, seemingly in good spirits. "The Harrison deal is practically closed," he announced, loosening his tie. "Just the formal presentation next Monday, but Rebecca and I have it locked down." "That's wonderful," I smiled, pouring him his favorite whiskey. "You've worked so hard." He took the glass, studying me with what might have been a flicker of suspicion, or perhaps guilt. "You know I couldn't have done it without you, Emma. The support you've given me all these years, it means everything." For a moment, looking at him saying these words while knowing what he planned, I felt a strange mix of sadness and clarity. This man had been my partner for 15 years. We had built businesses, a family, a life, and somewhere along the way, he had decided I was disposable. "To success," I said, raising my own glass, "and to getting exactly what we deserve." He smiled, not hearing the double meaning in my words. "I have a feeling these next few weeks are going to change everything for us." "Oh, Thomas," I said softly, "you have no idea how right you are." Monday morning arrived, the day of Thomas's big Harrison presentation. As he rushed around gathering his materials, I kissed him goodbye with practiced normalcy. "Knock them dead," I said, straightening his tie. "Thanks, babe. Don't wait up. We'll be celebrating tonight." He paused at the door. "By the way, I need to talk to you about something important this weekend. Just some business restructuring that might affect our taxes. The important talk that would precede divorce papers." How thoughtful of him to plan it for the weekend. "Looking forward to it," I smiled. "Good luck today." The moment his car left the driveway, I sprang into action. I changed into the power suit I'd hidden at the back of my closet, an outfit Thomas hadn't seen in years because he'd convinced me it was too aggressive for school functions. I called an Uber, not wanting my car to be seen. At 9:45 a.m., exactly 15 minutes before Thomas's scheduled presentation, I walked into the Harrison headquarters. My college roommate Jennifer, now their chief marketing officer, met me in the lobby with a tight smile. "Conference room A is ready," she said for the benefit of anyone listening. Then, lowering her voice, "He's in the executive lounge, doing his pre-presentation charm routine with Rebecca. They have no idea you're here." "Perfect." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you for this." "Are you kidding? I've been looking forward to this all weekend." We entered a large conference room where the entire Harrison executive team waited, along with Julian from our legal department, who'd arrived separately as planned. Thomas wasn't there yet, but his presentation materials were already loaded on the screen, showing the opening slide. Strategic Partnership Proposal, presented by Thomas Reynolds, CEO. My name nowhere to be found, just as Marie had warned me. Jennifer cleared her throat. "While we wait for Mr. Reynolds, I thought we might benefit from hearing some historical context about our company's relationship. Emma?" I stepped forward, feeling a strange calm. "Thank you, Jennifer. For those who don't know me, I'm Emma Reynolds, co-founder and equal partner of Reynolds Marketing Partners." The door opened, and Thomas froze mid-step, Rebecca nearly colliding with him from behind. The color drained from his face as our eyes met. "Emma," he managed, recovering quickly. "What a surprise. I didn't know you were joining us today." "Last-minute decision," I said breezily. "I was just giving the team some background on how our companies first connected through Jennifer and me during our college years." "Right," Thomas said tightly, moving toward the front of the room. "Well, we should probably stick to the agenda. Time constraints and all." "Actually," Jennifer interjected, "the board specifically requested Emma's presence when I mentioned she was available. We were hoping to hear both partners' perspectives on this potential collaboration." Thomas shot a panicked look at Rebecca, who stepped forward smoothly. "We're thrilled Emma could join us," she said with practiced warmth. "Though, as Thomas mentioned, we have prepared a specific presentation flow." "Which I'm sure is excellent," I interrupted politely. "But before we begin, I noticed a small error in the opening materials." I gestured to the screen. "The company leadership structure is incorrectly represented. As founding partners with equal ownership, Thomas and I share the executive role, with different operational focuses. Thomas's jaw tightened. Emma has chosen to focus on family responsibilities in recent years, while I've guided day-to-day operations. But yes, technically. Not technically, Thomas. Legally. I smiled at the room. Which brings me to an important disclosure before we proceed. Julian, would you mind? Julian stood and distributed folders to everyone in the room. These are certified financial and ownership documents for Reynolds Marketing Partners, he explained professionally. Thomas lunged for the folders. There's been some confusion. These aren't authorized. They're filed with the state, Thomas, I said calmly. Along with evidence I've submitted to the SEC regarding misrepresentation of company financials to our investor group last quarter. The room went deathly silent. The Harrison executives exchanged glances. What is she talking about? The Harrison CEO asked Thomas directly. Thomas forced a laugh. A simple misunderstanding between spouses. Perhaps we should take a brief recess? No misunderstanding. I continued steadily. Just documentation of systematic fraud, including the manipulation of profit statements, misallocation of client funds, and attempt to illegally divert company assets. I turned to the Harrison team. I apologize for this uncomfortable situation, but as an ethical business partner, I felt obligated to disclose these issues before you entered into a new contract. Rebecca stepped forward. This is ridiculous. Thomas and I have prepared accurate projections. Ah yes, Thomas and Rebecca, I smiled. I should also disclose that these two are involved in a personal relationship that has compromised business decisions, including the attempt to remove me from the company before securing this contract. The room erupted in murmurs. Thomas's face had gone from white to red. Emma, that's enough, he hissed. Actually, I'm just getting started, I replied. Julian, please explain the implications of Section 8.3 of our partnership agreement. Julian stood. According to the survivorship clause that Mr. Reynolds himself insisted on in the original agreement, proven fraud by either partner automatically transfers all shares to the non-offending partner. Given the evidence submitted to authorities this morning, control of the company now legally rests with Emma Reynolds. I turned to face Thomas directly for the first time. You're fired, Thomas. Security arrived, arranged beforehand by Jennifer, and escorted a protesting Thomas and Rebecca from the room. As they left, I noticed something I hadn't expected. Relief on the faces of several Harrison executives. I had concerns about some of those projections, the CFO admitted once Thomas was gone. They seemed too optimistic by far. The CEO leaned forward. Emma, this is highly irregular, but I appreciate your transparency. What happens now? I took a deep breath. Now, I present the actual proposal my team has prepared, with realistic numbers, ethical strategies, and the creativity that built our reputation in the first place. For the next hour, I did exactly what I'd been prevented from doing for years. I led. I presented. I answered questions with confidence and authority. And when it was over, the Harrison CEO stood and extended his hand. We'd be pleased to move forward with Reynolds Marketing Partners under your leadership, Emma. Though perhaps a company name change might be in order. As we shook hands, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. The simple power of being seen for exactly who I was. The aftermath unfolded like a series of aftershocks. Thomas tried everything. Legal challenges, attempts to access company systems, which I'd already had locked down, even a desperate plea meeting where he swung between threats and tearful apologies. You've destroyed everything, he said across the conference room table, his lawyer shifting uncomfortably beside him. No, Thomas. You did that when you decided I was disposable, I replied calmly. The difference is, I saved the evidence. In the end, faced with potential criminal charges for financial fraud and SEC violations, Thomas accepted the separation agreement Julian had prepared, a fair but not generous settlement that acknowledged his early contributions to the company while holding him accountable for his actions. He would not be penniless, I wouldn't do that to Lily's father, but he would never again control what I had helped build. Rebecca disappeared quickly when the winds changed, taking a job across the country. The employees rallied around me with a loyalty that brought me to tears, many confessing they'd been uncomfortable with the changes Thomas had been implementing. The place lost its heart when you stepped back. Marie told me on my first day returning to the office full-time. Everyone felt it. Rebuilding my life had other dimensions beyond work. Lily had questions, of course. Difficult ones that required age-appropriate honesty. "Is Daddy in trouble?" she asked one night as I tucked her in. "Daddy made some mistakes at work," I explained carefully. "And now he has to fix them. But he still loves you very much, and you'll still see him every week. Are you sad?" Those perceptive 9-year-old eyes searched my face. I considered the question seriously. I was sad, but now I'm proud of myself. Sometimes standing up for yourself feels better than staying comfortable but small. She nodded with surprising understanding. Like when Emma Watson stood up to those mean kids in my book. Just like that, I smiled, kissing her forehead. 6 months after what company staff now referred to simply as the presentation, I sat in my office. Not Thomas's grand corner suite, which I'd converted to a collaborative space, but a light-filled room overlooking the river. The company had been reborn as Clarity Partners, with a renewed focus on ethical business practices and transparent client relationships. The Harrison contract had indeed been transformational, though not in the way Thomas had planned. It led to 3 more major clients who appreciated our new direction and values-based approach. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Lunch tomorrow to celebrate Q3 results? Bringing champagne." I smiled and replied affirmatively, then turned back to my computer to finish an email. A notification popped up. Thomas had posted something on social media for the first time in months. Against my better judgment, I clicked. It was a photo of him with Lily at her soccer game, his caption reading, "Learning what really matters in life. Blessed new beginnings." I felt a complex emotion that wasn't quite forgiveness, but something adjacent to it. Recognition that people can be both terrible and redeemable. That the man who tried to erase me could also sincerely love our daughter. My office door opened, and Julian poked his head in. "The design team needs your feedback on the rebrand presentation. Got a minute?" "For that? Always." I stood up, closing Thomas's post without comment. As I walked through the office, greeting team members, noticing the energy and creativity flowing freely, I realized something profound. The worst betrayal of my life had led me back to myself. Not a diminished version that could be sidelined, but the full expression of who I was always meant to be. That evening, as I drove home to Lily, I caught sight of myself in the rearview mirror and hardly recognized the woman looking back. Not because she had changed, but because she had emerged, like someone stepping out of shadows into clear, revealing light. "You see me now," I whispered to no one and everyone. And more importantly, I